Hello and welcome to the Dungeon Masters Guild House. This is a weekly podcast where I, your host, Matthew Whitby, sit down with guests all across the DMsGuild and Friends RPG space. And this week, I'm privileged to be joined by Jess Marcrum. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, what is it? So this is like, to peel behind the curtain a little bit, you were just like, I want to be on. And I was like, oh, damn, this is easy, yeah. So
I basically screamed in his DMs.
Yeah, no, it's good. I don't think I make this known well enough, but if people are interested in coming on, just ask. Any and everybody's welcome. So it's great. But no, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Today's the first day that I got to sleep in this week, which is nice.
Nice.
And that's why my hair's still wet. But yeah, it's been going well.
Nice. I had an interesting start to this morning. So I had a meeting with one of my supervisors who noticed that I've got a new poster up. And they kind of asked, "Oh, what's that poster of?" And I had to explain, "Oh, that's just a poster of the first layer of hell." That I just like. So the conversation kind of went downhill from there. But that's how I started my day. But a little bit on topic for the people who may not necessarily know what what sort of things you do on the DMs Guild and around. What sort of products are you known for?
Probably, well, the biggest one was I wrote for the Uncaged anthology. That's how I got started. I recently produced the Book of Seasons, which is right behind me, Solstices and Equinoxes. And we just got nominated for an Emmy, which was really exciting.
I was going to say, congratulations. That must be really exciting.
I'm really proud of the team. I'm really excited for them. So if you're watching this and it's time to vote, you can vote for that.
I think it was it. So funny enough to almost date this episode already, but I think the voting opened literally today.
Today,
yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing afterwards.
There's a lot of really cool people who are nominated though, so I feel really lucky. But probably more than anything else, I think I'm known for cat stuff.
I was going to say, I'm glad you brought it up, because in doing my research, I was kind of looking through, all your titles. I was like, oh, there's a small theme here. There's quite a Tabaxi fan. I was like, oh, it's not just Tabaxi. It's
yeah, I think I'm like the D&D cat lady at this point.
And everyone needs their niche. So interesting. So I must admit, so I haven't had the chance. I don't believe, to my knowledge, that I've had a chance to speak to another sort of. Or anyone who was involved in the first at least the first Uncaged book, and then you also involved in the fourth, weren't you?
Yep.
Nice. What was it like being involved in that project? Because it is when it's kind of like the first adventure collaboration project of that scale that kind of came over and just blew up.
Well, it was amazing. It was my first writing experience for games at all. And so I really didn't have anything to compare it to. Mm-hmm. But having done a lot of collaborations since then and run one, I can't thank Ashley enough. Everything she did was so streamlined, and I don't know how she did it by herself. I had a really great team to help me out. But yeah, it was a lot of people working together. We were all... At first, we all felt kind of alone in our little pockets. Like, the writing was done so much earlier than the art or the editing. And book one was finished almost, not a year before book four, but a long time before it. But the Discord is still fairly active. People are in there still talking about what we have going on, posting creative opportunities, and talking about game jams and stuff like that. So there's still stuff going on.
Yeah, because as well. So even though the series is over, there are still the Uncaged Tarot? Sorry, that's kind of still in the works.
Yeah, that one we kind of got a little bit of a kick in the teeth because of COVID. When one bookshelf, we were gonna print through one bookshelf, and then they shut down their card printing because of COVID, and then because of that, we kind of got lax on some of the final art pieces, but they're printing again. And we're like, oh, we really need to finish that.
Yeah.
So, so that was one of the spin-offs from that. I'm not an artist. Please don't mission me for it. But I know a ton of artists that I can hook you up with that are phenomenal.
Yes. So moving on then from how many projects were there in between? Obviously, John, Uncaged being kind of your first, to leading the Book of Seasons, or like helping being, because I imagine that's like.
Oh, Lord. I had a really busy year.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it creating things on the DMsGuild or just like RPG? It's a little bit addictive. You kind of like, next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm gonna, I'll try one out. You do one project, and next thing you know, you've signed up to 15 collaborations. You've got.
Yeah, I know that. And there were all the like weird little game jams I did on Itch too. Probably 20 things, maybe.
And I'm guessing, I'm curious then. So what was your drive? When did you sort of reach the point where you're just like, okay, no, I want to, like, I want to lead, or I want to be like, or like, gather my own team.
It actually started. So there's a massive spreadsheet in the Uncaged Discord of Uncaged spinoff projects. Oh. So like Friends, Foes, and Other Fine Folks is one of them. That's already come out. That came out last year. But Eat the Rich was another one that came out of that.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so pretty much any time somebody has an idea, Colette Kwok just adds it onto the spreadsheet. And at this point, a lot of us had ideas for winter adventures and didn't really have anywhere to put them. And Jen Peg, who was the art director of Book of Seasons, was like, well, it would be really cool if we could all put these in a book and maybe have it wouldn't just be winter. We could do like the whole year and a couple other things, but please don't have me run it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll run it. How hard can it be? And so almost 50 people signed up, and it's moderately hard.
Yeah. And I guess as well, so the timing of the project was, well, to be, I take it, just before the closing of the print-on-demand process?
Yeah, we were approved right before it ended, nice. Which was really lucky for us.
I mean, again, it's I can see why you have it on like your mantle, because it's beautiful. Again, it's the same with the Uncaged and the Book of Seasons, that they having like a thematic or like I guess like matching covers are just like, it's you can tell they're connected.
Yeah. The covers for both of the Book of Seasons were collaboration with Jen Peg and David Markuski, who was our layout artist, and also contributed a number of pieces to both Solstices and Equinoxes. But I didn't realize this until I saw the cover for Solstices, but it's actually supposed to be a Fae version of me, and then Equinoxes is a Fae version of Jen.
Aww. That's me.
Yeah. So I was like, she kind of looks like me, and they were like, yeah, she's supposed to.
Interesting. No, I bet. And so I guess to look across your catalog of projects as well, then there is like a real mix. So I mean, like, obviously when it comes to like collaborations, it's obviously there's a fair amount of like adventure collaborations, but it seems like you're kind of happy to sort of dip your toes into sort of writing like subclasses, I mean, like what was your approach to that, to just sort of like throw yourself into anything really?
Yeah, pretty much whenever anybody said they were hiring a writer, if the project looked interesting to me, I'd pitch. Now, sometimes I'm lucky enough that people are coming to me for certain things, which is really great. But, still, when somebody says something or posts in the DMsGuild Discord, like, hey, I'm doing this cool thing, it's really hard for me now to look at my calendar and see, like, can I actually sign up for this?
Yeah.
Is this really a thing that I have time to do? Because my instinct is just to be like, yep, I want in. That sounds cool.
Yeah. No, I know the same thing. I think actually funnily enough for me, I hit this moment where I have only like 2 projects going on at the moment. and it feels weird. It feels like
wow.
It feels empty.
What is that like?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, you know, when you just have like a bunch of deadlines coming back to back, and then next thing you know, you've handed them in, and you sort of shift them off to one side, and just like, oh, I guess I could do other things now. I didn't know I could free myself from I guess that's always what's appealing about collaborations. Is like they're easier to get involved in. They're a different beast than like managing a project yourself, or, you know, being like a project manager.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to kind of catch like what were some of the things that you found difficult about running the sort of Book of Seasons.
Tracking people down for deadlines is hard.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard for any project, but it seems like, and I think smaller projects have an easier time with this, because I've been involved with smaller projects where I just know that it's easier. But, you know, you can have a deadline like X number of months out. You can give people weekly reminders. You can have a document that has all the deadlines on it. Everything can be pinned. You can send emails and Discord messages and have every kind of open communication in the world. Mm-hmm. And people are still going to miss it.
Yeah.
And I'm easygoing. I know life happens. So it's cool. Like if somebody approaches me and is like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make this because of life. And that's kind of thing where I'm like, oh, of course, life happens. So let's extend. Mm-hmm. But when people just don't show and I have to find you, and in a huge project where I have to find like 2 hands worth of people for various things, it can get frustrating. So
you mentioned with so you had was it 50 people apply? Yeah. How many ended? Like how many?
I think like 45, I think, or something. Just under 50.
Oh, that's a lot of people.
I mean, that's writers, editors, and artists.
Yeah. So I imagine. I think with it. So it's like in my head, I'm trying to work out what would be like a logical ratio of writers to editors, and then I think it's probably like, was it like 1 editor per 3? Does that?
I think that was about how it worked out. We did have a team of. I mean, a lot of the writers did editing. We had very few people who were solely editors, but we had, I think, 10 editors for 40 adventures, and then like a proofreading lead and an editing lead. So like 12 total editors, I guess. Wow. And every adventure got read twice by 2 different editors.
Oh yeah, just to sort of like, you know, cross check and yeah. No, interesting. No, again, it's baffling. Like again, I couldn't imagine personally leading a project of that size. So it's kind of impressive to sort of see, you know, you pulled it off not once but twice.
I mean, Ashley did it 4 times and did it pretty much all by herself with like over 100 people. Yeah. I have no idea how she freaking did that.
Well, I have to say, so obviously not knowing Ashley at all, but as a witness to the RPG Writer workshop, it feels like like organizing is just her jam. Like, yeah, has it down. Like whatever techniques that you know she's using is they work. Yeah. No, interesting. Okay, well, cool. Well, dipping into like a little bit of your creative process, then, is it very much like, I guess it's asking where you get your ideas from kind of differs when you're getting involved in like collaborations, because I guess it is like 9 times out of 10. What I do like is that collaborations, they tend to have like a wide. You have a wide play space. It is very much like they all need to fit this very loose theme of, I don't know, like hags and unicorns, or you know, just as long as it's got these two tick boxes, go nuts. So I'm curious. So like when it comes to like, is it the case of like you see a pitch, you immediately get the inspiration, or do you go away and try and sort of like think up a bunch of ideas, or?
So I really like making monsters. And I'm kind of that weird person who likes making stat blocks I know a lot of people really hate that. So before I start any adventure, I will start by picking the monsters that are going to be in it and seeing if I need to make any new ones for picking a few things, what would be cool, and then going off from there. I generally have like a vague idea, especially if I'm doing a collaboration. Like if I'm doing the Shakespeare anthology, I'll pick what Shakespeare play I want to do.
Yeah.
And so for that, I did Taming of the Shrew. And was kind of like, well, it would be fun to flip that on his head and have Catherine get her revenge. And then I was thinking, I've never really done anything with a dragon. It would be fun if you could have like Petruchio eaten by a dragon and then replaced by a dragon. That would be a neat thing.
Yeah.
Spoilers for that adventure. Or like I'll think of some monster I haven't used very often. Like there was another one that was like, fairy dragons don't get much play. I ended up just writing 5 dragon adventures in a row for various collaborations because I was like, I paged a bunch of dragon things because I realized I'd never played an adventure with a dragon in it. So I was like, here, I'll write dragons for this. And then I had to write 5 dragon adventures in a month. But
I was going to say, no, that's a really kind of fascinating like design angle. Is almost like almost working backwards from what the player is facing in terms of like monsters and I could think of like so many monsters that I haven't had the chance to use. I think it's like I haven't used any sphinxes, which I think would be interesting. Or the was it the Kuatoa? The little fish dudes that make gods.
And they're cool.
They are cool. It's just like wow. Oh, no, interesting. And then I take it. So you have the in the cases of like when you identify that you have to make your own stat log. How do you go about that? Just because like, I'm just curious.
So a lot of times, I mean, if it's the case of like a dragon or something, it's easy just kind of changing around like, what does this dragon need? Like, this dragon's going to use magic. What spells is it going to get? How can this dragon cast? And I think all dragons should have changed shape, so I just give them that. But for so I just released a big bestiary called the Big Book of Cats. It's 40 various cats of real world and fictional world for you to put in your game. And with that, half of it was reading a lot about real world cats and then figuring out how to mechanically put them into an adventure. So really studying how, like, what is in the monster manual, what is in Volos and whatever, all of that, like nimble escape or something. And could they have that? Or shadow stealth or something, and how could that apply? So like the sand cat, I gave something similar to shadow stealth, where if it's on sand, it can basically vanish because they have such good camouflage. And then other times it's just taking an existing monster and modifying it in enough ways. So for Book of Seasons, again, when I made the Yule cat, which is an Icelandic folklore cat that's bigger than houses and comes along and eats you if you haven't received any new clothes for Christmas. It's a real folklore thing, and I love it. It's also in the Big Book of Cats. But I basically modified a white dragon, and then because I was like, what would be about that big? Probably a young adult white dragon. And then I would have the cold resistance, and then let's give it more cat-like things. So it needs pounce. And then how tall can cats jump? Oh, they can jump like a house cat can jump about 10 feet in the air from a sitting position. So if this cat is 40 feet tall, it could probably jump like 100 feet in the air from a sitting position. And going from there.
No, interesting. I like it in the same way that, like, in the few monsters that I've designed over the time, it is very much like, it almost feels like making like a flesh golem. You're flipping through like the monster manual, you're thinking, oh, that's a cool ability. That kind of makes sense here. You chop that part, pop it here, and just a unique combination of, actions and abilities kind of make something unique in itself. No, interesting. And then I take it, so in the situations where you're taking a existing monster and not making many changes, the thing that kind of jumps to mind immediately about making the adventure kind of interesting is like trying to find ways of putting that monster in like an exciting situation.
Yeah.
Or just like I think it was one of the fun ones I had recently, which is like a air elemental, and putting them in a room full of sand. And the idea of like having like as it moves over sand, having like a blinding effect because there's just sand everywhere.
Cool.
I was curious if you've had any other sort of similar things where you've taken otherwise like a interesting monster, but then also like let's throw it somewhere even cooler.
For my adventure, A Day with the Fae, I was thinking a lot about old Irish, Celtic, Scottish fairy tales, and I got stuck on the old rituals that people do. Like the Monster Manual alludes to it a little bit with the bargaining, but I was thinking about, cold iron and stuff like that. And I was like, so what would be the perfect, what can I think of it? Defensive structure for the Feywild? Well, they would have rust monsters. Yeah. So I have the adventurers go groom the livestock, and it's just a whole barn full of rust monsters, and then they can assist in hatching of a baby rust monster.
Aww. I can see an adventuring party with a little baby rust monster causing many problems. Like you go to draw your dagger and it's been eaten.
Yeah, the baby rust monster is not very strong, but it's very fast, and its rusting ability is twice as powerful because it's a growing baby.
Oh, of course it is. No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, no, it's cool things like that where you take monsters and you just think about, okay, well, sometimes it's weird to think of like this is a world where all these monsters and beasts exist. So it makes sense that there would be natural sort of like symbiotic relationships of like, it just makes sense that, I don't know, like a bunch of drow are just on really good terms with gelatinous cubes. Yeah. They're best pals, It's like the drow know that like if you've got a building and you just want a temporary plug, just pop a cube in there. No other Underdark monsters can get through. Things like that. No, interesting. Yeah, and I that kind of leads into like my next question, which I think you've kind of answered though. So would it be safe to assume that your favorite part of the project is creating these stat blocks?
I really like coming up with the monsters and figuring out fun ways to integrate them. I feel like once I have that set, the rest is just sort of filling it in. Because I know what it's going to look like. It's just kind of placing them and seeing where they're going to interact.
And I'm curious then. So for an adventure, like how many monsters do you kind of like pick out? Is it like you kind of focus you focus on like what the heart of the adventure is going to be about, but do you worry about like the encounter? Like, is it like you try and plan for like 3 to 4 encounters? Like, I'm curious.
It really depends on the adventure. Like I've done a couple things like in the Savage Underdark, I had a map in there, and at first I took that one and I thought, well, it's just going to be fire newts and what was the other one? I think kobold steel sorcerers or something, because I think they would get along, and I never really see much of either of them, and they could have a good party together. Yeah. And then I was like, well, the party will need a bouncer, so I need some hobgoblins in there. Oh, and wouldn't it be fun if there was a salamander? Yeah. And then I need a baby salamander.
Yeah. Wait, at a party? You need a baby one at the party?
Yeah. And so then in that way, it kind of just grew. And in these various rooms, you'll find like different creatures just kind of having a party.
Yeah, not bad.
And one Nothic just hanging out.
I mean, yeah. Was it? So if I remember, Nothics, they're the ones that can like read like minds or like the insight thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Again, that's another thing. It's like I guess like this is like there are so many cool monsters out there, and like there's so much like play space. I'm trying to think of like more ones. Like actually was it? So I was writing an encounter more recently about the was it the Acotl? Like they're the sort of like snakes with wings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that have like apparently they're like
Model, yeah.
they're like divine beings. They're like they exist for like a god that is like, and it's like if you just flip through, you're like, oh, that's just a snake with wings. But then you realize like it's just like this is like this.
Like, no,
this
that's
is
a god.
Yeah, it's a messenger for like a god long lost and forgotten. And it's just laying right there. So there's so much, like, again, I think I could definitely like probably write a few adventures just from like flicking through the monster manual and just finding things kind of interesting to play around with.
Yeah,
I might have to do that. I think I've already got the what was the one I mentioned already. I had a good one about it was
the fish people.
Well, sorry.
The
Kuatoa. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Okay, yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to watch the podcast back. No, okay. Well, interesting then. And okay, by that same, so stat block's favorite part. What's your least favorite part of any sort of project?
Marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, the day that it's released is terrifying for me. Like, it's so exciting because I get to be like, look at the thing that I made, yay! Yeah. And then inwardly I want to hide. And I know some people who just like refresh their royalties all the time, and I'm like, I don't want to know. And I don't want to, especially if it's something that I've produced. It's one thing if it's something that I put out for, like, that I contributed to, then I'm just like, oh, cool, it's selling well, or oh, that's a bummer, it's not selling that great. But if it's something that I organized, if it's not selling that well, I always feel like I let everybody down and I owe them a huge apology. And from being on the other side, I know they don't really feel like that.
Yeah.
But, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think with every sort of project you put out there, everyone kind of hopes for the best. But again, you can't really predict the sales. Unfortunately, we're not one that says. And yeah, no, being involved in collaboration is very much like, oh, this thing's out, and you get to do the like, you get to do the retweet saying, hey, I worked on this, and then that's your part to the. But yeah, no, I think personally as well, I sometimes struggle in. I don't know what it is, but it's the weird adventure writing thing. Where it is very hit and miss. Like there's no trend to like what necessarily makes like an adventure sell well compared to like something else. I think it's very much like timing, or again, I don't know. It's like I'm not reading the bones in my bowl well enough, or like maybe the bones have gone bad. Yeah.
I never know.
No.
I know the month that the guild gave us 100% of our shares was great.
Oh yeah, that was good. And then it is the month after when you look at your sales and try and compare, and it's just like in your back of your mind you have to go, no, that's an outlier. That's a special month. I can't.
Yeah. Can't compare everything to that.
I can't expect that every month. But going back to then, so when it comes to like one of your own projects, is there anything in particular that you try and do to like advertise, or is it just very much like you raise awareness via social media or?
I mean, I post stuff in every Discord that I'm in. I post stuff on Twitter. I post stuff on Facebook. I haven't done any paid marketing, like people who like buy ads and stuff. I've never done that.
Yeah.
I am doing something a little different with the Big Book of Cats because we have so much cute cat art that I got really lucky with Zan and Tallulah. And David, I just kind of asked them, like, I can't buy this art from you, but if you just want to sketch some cats, we could do a royalty share, and they were nice enough to say yes. Yeah. So every day I've just been posting like, hey, here's a cat that's in this book, and here's some cool things that it does. Look at this pretty art. And I don't know how effective that's been, but people seem to enjoy looking at the cute cats.
I think there's definitely there's something there about sharing art of a project. Because I think people can naturally sort of gravitate towards seeing something, thinking, and like, oh, okay, they're not just grabbing the DMsGuild stock art and stuff like that. They're actually like yeah. I think the same thing. I was like when I was doing the build up to Volo's Guide to Getting Murdered. I did like sort of like a daily.
I love that title.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's we tried to summarize the book in as few words as possible. I think actually, you know what? I think Justice saved that book with because I think I was coming up with the Volo's Guide to Not Getting Murdered, or something to that extent. But he was like, no, just keep it simple. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna trust you on that one, and I'm very much glad that I did. But in the build up to that, I did like I had some portraits done of all the sort of important characters, and I did like release the main art with like a little saying, "Oh, coming next week," and that got like a fair bit of engagement. So I think if your project does have some nice art attached to it, I think using it in the build up to release definitely sort of can help. I don't know. It's speculation all over here.
Yeah. It's also nice to see the artists who get like excited to share their work.
Oh yeah.
Like when they're like, "Oh, hey, I can finally share this thing that I did," and I'm like, "Yay! I love your art." I
must admit, I think that's something I don't think I get involved with artists as much as I could, and there's so many out there, and I feel like that's another thing. It's almost like choice paralysis. It's like there's so many amazing artists in the at least in the DMsGuild community, and it's just like, wow, I want them all. And I imagine as well. So was it very much the sort of the artists you approach, were a lot of them the ones that sort of came over from the Uncaged project as well, or have you sort of searched around, or sort of like actually I could turn that into a question, like how do you find the artists for your projects?
So initially, well, a lot of them are Uncaged people. I do a lot of work with Uncaged people, and then others have just been stuff that I've worked with on, I guess, Uncaged adjacent things. Like I met Tallulah because she did some of the art for Berthazar's House of Familiars.
Yep.
So I knew she was really good at drawing like critters. And she likes drawing animals. And so I was just like, "Hey, you like drawing animals? Do you want to draw some cats?" And David Marcuscu does basically all of my layout for DMsGuild stuff. You can see the massive difference in my stuff for DMsGuild versus my stuff for Itch, because the stuff for Itch I do my layout myself, and it's markedly worse. He and Kat Evans and I basically got together, and when I first made the College of Caterwauling, which was the first subclass I did based on my cats and for bards, and then we're like, we should do this for all of the classes, and just kind of went together. And for the first one I just did public domain art, and after that he said that he's an artist. He was like, "You know what, I'm gonna draw these cats. I don't draw cats, but I'm gonna learn how to draw cats." And yeah, so the most recent one he did for the Druid is gorgeous.
I was going to say, so that's someone who didn't really have much experience drawing cats before.
Yeah.
And this is, what is it, the Circle of the Catnip Druid?
Yeah.
Great. Which again, I have to commend you on the name for that.
Thank you. And Kat and David have both released a subclass of their own, but they're all under the like cat umbrella. We sold a bundle of them during the month when we got all the royalties. Is Feline 5. It's still up there. You can just is 5 subclasses for $5.
Is the plan to sort of maybe bring it all together in a singular project, or just sort of keep it as a bundle at the end?
I think to keep it. We haven't really decided. We've thought about doing a bundle, and we've thought about doing one big project, and I think we're unsure at this point.
I know. Again, so I remember reading, or like overhearing discussions in like the Discord or around about, especially with like subclass products, that there is some appeal in having them as a whole thing, and also piecemeal. Because I take it if you're looking at a list of subclasses and you're like, oh, I want to try this one, but I'm not necessarily fussed by all of them, you can just sort of go away and buy that.
Yeah.
Which I think,
and these are so niche.
Yeah, and I suppose if it's the difference between someone who goes, oh, I wouldn't buy this whole project just for this one subclass, to be able for them to be like, oh, well, if I could just buy this one subclass. Yeah. In fairness, I think there is some logic there. Again, I'm not a subclass writer, so again, take everything I say with like scoops of salt. Yeah, because I think Oh, sorry.
I became a subclass writer because I wanted to play a bard who could sing.
Nice.
And I thought it was, I mean, there was the College of Opera at that point, but that was really the only thing. And at that point, one of my cats was screaming all night long. And so I was like, well, you are the subclass.
and I'll be curious. So have you been using that subclass in any of your own games?
I have. I played one on Uncaged Live, I think. Yeah, that was the premiere of that. Was on Uncaged Live.
And how did you find it? Like, I take it like it's something about like playing your own sort of creations and stuff like that. So always kind of like.
It's fun. I've been on a stream. We're on hiatus right now, but we're coming back later in July. We might be playing by the time this airs, actually. Called Sigil Spotlight. That's on Sigil Entertainment's Twitch channel. It's a bunch of creators who, there's 2 shows a week I play on the Saturday show. And it's a bunch of game designers and artists, and we just play our own stuff.
Nice. It's
very cool. Arcanus, Eugene Marshall, who runs Arcanus Press, is the DM and organizer for all of that.
Nice.
So we play each other's adventures. I died in one of mine. They brought me back, but we opened with one of my horror adventures, and I clarified a rule on something and made it harder on myself, and immediately dropped to 0 hit points.
So what's it like
from my Bodak?
What's it like being on like the player side of like one of your own adventures?
It's very cool in a way to see what somebody else brings to the table.
Yeah.
Because Eugene is a fantastic DM. He's so creative, and seeing what somebody else brings to the table with their own voice and stuff they might put in there that I didn't put in, but is also perfect.
Yeah.
Or where I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that, but I love it, is very cool. At the same time, one of the adventures of mine that we ran was a mystery. So I intentionally played somebody who was like low intelligence and not going to investigate.
Just there to sort of the muscle. Or
yeah. But it was still hard being me at one point, not being like, you sure you don't want to go investigate upstairs? You sure? You just want to hang out down here?
Oh,
Okay,
the body's hand is closed. I'm not interested in that.
I was like, you just want to hang out on this floor, this 3-floor house? That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll do what the group wants.
Yeah. No, interesting. Like it's another thing of like, so in more recent adventures, I've started sort of trying to get more playtesting feedback. But I've not had the chance to sort of sit in or like just watch or actually actively participate in my own adventure, which I don't know. I feel like, I just can't sort of imagine that sort of experience. I think like it's got to be good though. Although I think like my mind would be like, as I'm playing, I'd be thinking of like, okay, well, this is what I need to change. I need to change this, as you know, as just making it a page of notes and then releasing like version 2 the next morning.
The cool thing with that is some people are, I think, putting stuff that they're working on. The only stuff of mine that we've run is stuff that is like long published and done with. So I'm like, it's there in the world. Yeah. Have it. No, fair.
No, interesting. And so I guess to bring the sort of like your creative questions like around to like an end, are there any particular lessons that you kind of wished you'd learned earlier that?
Scheduling is your friend. Yeah. Just because you can write a 5,000 word adventure in one sitting doesn't mean that it's good or healthy or that you should. That's a big one.
Yeah. Is this a result of having like 13 spinning plates and sort of sitting like I think sometimes like it's hard to realize when you're not in the right mindset to write, and especially with deadline looming, it feels like well, I can't write right now, but I really need to. So it's like and then that sort of starts a cycle where it gets harder to write. No, interesting. Yeah. And were there anything that you kind of did to help yourself through the sort of scheduling problems?
Well, I learned it because I have a couple chronic illnesses. And so I got to a point where I was really good at hitting my deadlines. And then I would have a migraine that would just take me out for like 2 or 3 days. And then all of a sudden, everything was late. And I was like, okay, well, I have to write 2 adventures today. And one is 5,000 words and one is 3,000 words. So I'm going to wake up at 8 and write until 2 in the morning. Yeah. And then my brain interpreted that as like, that's how we can just write now. We can just do that.
Yeah.
And having to really sit down, and before I'd had all my deadlines on the calendar, but now also scheduling time to write on the calendar, like instead of just having free time, but saying like, no, you're going to write this project at this time for this many hours is good. And then also, this sounds so basic, but just having a list of all the things I'm working on.
Yeah.
It's really helpful because it seems more real than just looking like, oh, well, that's not due until, July, which is now. But, it's later. It's like 2 weeks from now, so it's not real.
Oh no, I'm a big a big fan of lists. Like, actually, was it like right here? This is my list of like things that I just, the satisfying part of being able to sort of like break a project down and have things to tick off. Like, it's like, it's mini euphoria every time I finish a section and I get to like, oh, I get to tick this one off, and I go, there you go, that's progress.
The best part of like wrapping a thing for me is whenever I'm writing, I think I have like 20 web pages open, and then just closing them all.
No, again, like, here's the thing, but the problem is like, it's, you can't recreate that outside of like the writing context. Like, you can't just open a bunch of tabs and then just close them. They have to be 20 unique tabs, all related to this project in some way. And you have to have them up for like 2 weeks, and your computer is like, please restart Chrome. Please. You're like, no. I think
we will not restart Chrome.
I've noticed that there's at least like a few tabs that whenever I'm just writing, I just naturally open up. And I think, the one that I find the most useful is the D&D Beyond skills
yes.
page. Yeah.
I always have that.
Yeah, no, I just
when it's like the SRD skills.
Yeah, so it's just like, okay, well, here's like your intellect, and then here's all the checks that go under. Just because
skills and conditions, I always have open.
No, it's always just because like, I always find like, as I'm writing, saying like, oh, and you do a DC 13, and I'm like, well, this is like trying to understand the written language. And then it's like, well, maybe it's invest, and then I have to go away and I have to like say, it's kind of like it's an intelligence check, but is it like a history check? Is it like, where does it kind of fall under?
So I'm gonna plug Pugmire here because that's something that I love that Pugmire does. They have a no culture skill that's under
that's
intelligence, and I wish D&D had it. It's so good.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that there's a few checks that like I stumble a fair bit over like nature and survival, just because it's some of those weird ones where like you're trying to like identify like, I don't know, like a certain plant and stuff like that, and then things like maybe like it would be nature to know what type of plant it is, but then it would be survival to be like, oh yeah, you can't eat that.
I think I've gotten in the habit of almost giving like 2 checks for anything where I'm like, you can do this or this, you'll just learn different things about it.
Yeah. And I think as well. So I think I'm experimenting around. I was having a chat with RP Davis not too long ago about the idea of like incremental checks. The idea of like being able to like if you roll a 12, you learn this. You learn it like 50. Unfortunately, in like adventure projects where you have a word limit, those things don't necessarily get to flourish as much, and that's why.
On the other hand, if you're being paid by the word,
every check has like tiers. No, I honestly, I think that's one thing I sometimes struggle with, because I think I'm quite verbose, and I don't necessarily work well to a limit. Especially like, again, I think you mentioned before, I was writing a 3,000 words adventure. I don't know if I could do that, or I would have to narrow the scope, just because I think I get attached to an idea of an adventure, and then I try and cram that into the word thing rather than
that's what Uncaged was. I think it was 3,000, or it was 3,000 and then got shortened to 2,500 or something. But I think I know it got shortened 500 words from what it initially was. So it was either 3,500 down to 3,000. That's what I think it was. And then on Book of Seasons, I gave everybody, I think, 3,500. It was like the 500 that we would have had on Uncaged.
No, it's interesting. It's an interesting exercise to sort of recognize where what needs to be cut, or like, you know, where you draw the line. And as
Unbridled, we had 1,500 words, which was wild, but fun.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah. I finished that one. Yeah, no, I that one was really small, just because. So what I did for that was I did a was it Freaky Friday essentially?
Yeah.
So I made it so each sort of 500 words chunk was dedicated to meeting the unicorn, who's currently a hag.
I liked your adventure a lot.
Yeah, meeting the hag, who's currently the unicorn, and then confronting the dickish gnome, who's kind of running the whole thing. Yeah, and that was kind of how I. So yeah, it's tough, but you, like, I suppose it's kind of just working out where you need to allocate your words. Yeah. I was gonna say, well, for Unbridled, which was yours one again?
Feline Fervor, the one where the cats, of course. With the hag backseat and the catacorns and the kittencorns.
I was like, it was. That's like you're going above and beyond. It's not just hags and unicorns. It's hags, unicorns, and kittens, and combinations of the two, like the Venn diagram.
Yeah, had to get my brand.
No, interesting. And then I guess to begin wrapping up our chat here, to kind of look to the future. Do you have any sort of like dream projects that you're kind of dying to get involved in, or?
I kind of just. Well, I wanted to do a cat book, and I did.
Yeah. And
I wanted to write for Pugmire, and I'm currently working on their new mouse book, Squeaks in the Deep. So that's very exciting for me.
So you've succeeded, you made it.
I would really like to do something more with, and I don't know if this will be 5e or something else, but more with just, I really like the old, this is going to sound like Penny Dreadful or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but like the public domain monsters and literary heroines, and doing some kind of either gothic or fairy tale setting or game where they all kind of interact with each other, where you could have like Dracula and Alice in Wonderland and Dorothy and maybe not the Invisible Man because he's gross, but Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like all just kind of hanging out
in that sort of like Victorian-esque, like what sort of like it's pre-car, but sort of like automobile-esque.
Yeah, like Gaslight era kind of thing. I would like something like that. That might be down the pipe at some point. We'll see.
No, I must admit, there is like a interesting like subgenre of like products which are very much like taking like, again, things in domain like, you know, King Arthur and stuff like that, and doing interesting reimaginings,
yeah.
And placing them in like different locations, different eras. Yeah, that stuff is always interesting. I think people naturally gravitate towards these because they're icons that everyone knows, and it's interesting ways to try and like subvert that. So yeah, no, the idea of was it bringing Alice in Wonderland into was it Jack the Ripper that you mentioned?
Dracula.
Oh, Dracula again. That's ignoring Jack the Ripper.
I mean, Jack the Ripper might be there. Who knows?
Yeah, he's always there. No, interesting. No, fantastic. No, yeah, that's no. But what interesting? I guess watch the maybe drive through RPG in that sort of surrounding itch space for something like that. Maybe in the Harris. No, that's interesting. And keeping it towards the community, then, is there is there anyone in the DMsGuild community or surrounding space that sort of particularly inspires you?
There's a few people. I already mentioned Ashley, who's the one who got me into all of this. I look up to her a lot. Yeah, we call her Words Mom in the Uncaged Discord. Yeah. Oliver Clegg has such drive, the way he puts out like 18,000 products a day.
And all top 10, all just every week.
They're so good. And he's such a hard worker and nice guy. And also, she doesn't do as much with DMsGuild as she does on Itch, but Allison Huang, Drazillian, she was a writer and an artist on Uncaged and also in Book of Seasons. And she's kind of like the queen of game jams over on Itch. And she's incredible. Like, she's done a guide to, jamming without cramming kind of thing. Yeah. And she's run a few, and she consistently puts out excellent work. And both like video games and tabletop RPGs.
No, fair. I always, this is a question that I always feel a little bit cruel for. I think I say this every week just because it's like there's so many amazing creators around, and you can kind of draw inspiration from kind of anywhere and every way that you go. But it's always nice to lift people up to be like, this person, they're special.
I mean, what Ashley's done with the Writers' Workshop blows my friggin' mind. Like, there's over 4,000 people enrolled.
Oh, yeah, summer. And actually, it's convenient timing as well, because they've just kicked off their summer workshop this year as well.
Yeah, so, I'm an instructor in that this year.
I'm curious, how do you get involved with being an instructor? Is it just...
I don't know how other people do it. Ashley kind of just mentioned in the Uncaged Discord, like, hey, if you want to be an instructor, let me know, kind of thing. And I was like, I would like to do that. Yeah.
And how many, I need to stop. I was going to say, how many underlings do you have? But I don't think that's how.
Oh, it's not like that. Like, we each write lessons and give homework. So like, I'll be in there around for people to message us, but it's more go at your own pace kind of thing than it is like a classroom structure.
And it's sorry, I think I got it confused with the idea of like a mentorship. It's more like
I did do the mentorship program. I was a mentor when that first started. I don't think that's going on right now. I had like 2 mentees, I think.
I know.
I don't think I remember I menteed.
I was gonna say, because are you able to share what your what you kind of thing you're teaching, or like
I wrote a guide I wrote the lesson on how to write an effective and interesting NPC to start off, like to start off the quest, basically how to write a good plot hook NPC. And then I also wrote a lesson that was basically how to integrate safety tools, content warnings, and higher sensitivity readers, and why you need them.
No, fact. I was gonna say, I'm so surprised not to hear one about stat blocks.
I did include the stats for the NPC.
Oh, yeah, there you go. You snuck it in there,
But that was more on like the bonds and what drives them, and like what the NPC is about. I think somebody had already picked how to make a good monster.
There's always next year.
But I love making NPCs and stuff like that. Yeah. I just usually make them into something kind of monstrous. From making stat blocks, making NPCs is kind of like the next sort of logical step. It's it's along the same line. Yeah, when I ran Princesses Save Dragons, I got to make a lot of not Disney villains. Yeah. And one of them was based on Cruella de Vil, and she was pretty much just I think she was a glamour bard, but I gave her a golem it was a fashion golem, and it was made out of fur coats that protected her.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, that makes that's such a good idea. That makes so much sense. But it's just the imagery. It's
Players were not expecting a coat golem.
No, I still don't. I've heard the words coat golem, and like my brain is like, I'm not prepared for this.
It looks like a pile of coats until you get close, and then it comes up and tries to make you wear it.
Oh, and then crushes you, or just
crushes you.
Yeah, okay, there you go. There we go. That's where the killing comes in.
Yeah.
So to keep it back on topic, coat columns can't hurt me here. What kind of projects are you kind of working on? What can we expect with from you in the coming?
I'm working on a couple NDA things that I'm very excited about.
Ooh.
But I am also working on the tarot anthology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making an adventure based on the moon card.
Yeah, I'm in there too.
You are? What's your card?
Yeah, I'm doing the devil, which again,
sweet.
Which kind of it all makes sense now. Yeah, I'm a devil incarnate.
I love it.
No, yeah, I'm really excited for this project. It's coming along. It's coming along nicely. It's kind of interesting. I'm interested to see how people sort of pull from the card's inspiration.
Yeah. Mine is kind of based. My pitch was kind of the original Wicker Man.
Oh.
But with hags and lichens. So
is that kind of where is that where you kind of started your hook? Was like, oh, I haven't done much with covens before.
I've done so much with hags.
Oh.
I helped write Grandmother Crookfussum's Book of Hags, but I thought of the moon and how it's very much like things aren't as they seem.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought of shapeshifters, and then I was like, well, what if the whole town was shapeshifters?
No, so mine to share a little bit about mine. So mine is the adventure title. I think I can share that. I think I've called mine the devil. The devil is in the details, and it's the idea of a town is currently having some problems where the mayor is receiving sort of like omens that a devil invasion is coming, and there is a resident who isn't happy with the way the mayor is running things. That is in contract with the devil. And it's sort of like competing things escalating in the town, and the devil, of course, having their own plans, and the players kind of get involved in the middle of it.
I love that.
Yeah. So no, again, so I don't know if we have a release date announced yet, but soon, TM.
Yeah.
Like in the next month or so.
Or August, something. It's going to be in 2 parts, and I know that my deadline is 3 days. Yeah. So I will be doing
I think this is where, like, if we were professional, we'd be like, oh, it's coming out in Q3 of
right. Yeah, and I'm also finishing up a game that I'm doing called tentatively called Operation Cat Chat for Wretched Jam.
Oh, and that's out on itch, and the Wretched Jam is like I believe is it?
It's based on Chris Bissett's Wretched and Alone.
Yeah. And
there's 2 days left on that, and so I am
you have
writing that and writing my tarot adventure over the next 3 days.
Interesting few days ahead then. Interesting few days ahead.
Yeah. So that's what I'm doing.
No, awesome. Again, that's another thing as well. It's like with when I was looking through the sort of list of like projects you've worked on, seeing like Unbridled and other things, I was like, oh yeah, I was on that too. Like, it's kind of like the longer you stick around, there's like, oh yeah, there's collaborations that I kind of forgot that I got involved in with because there was also it was Jeff Stevens' Heroes and Villains, the Undead one. I wrote something for that as well. So
it's kind of funny if a collaboration doesn't have a Discord. It seems like you can be in it and never interact with the other people.
Yeah. And I think having been involved in some collaborations that do have their own Discord, I think I do kind of prefer having the sort of the ability to chat with other people and sort of check in and.
I like being able to bounce ideas off of each other and like work together. It was very fun for the Midwinter Ghost Stories, the one that Kat Evans ran.
Yeah.
The one that I died in on Sizzle Spotlight. It was a short-lived Discord because it was just like we made that project really quickly. Mm-hmm. But the whole project is like this one family that is horribly cursed, at every Christmas or solstice in its Gothic Earth, and we all kind of came together to build this family tree and build their house as a team and working on stuff like that and just adding on to what their Gothic mansion looks like.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
very fun.
No, that sounds like, yeah, I think as one thing as well, because sometimes collaboration can feel very much like working in isolation and then everything being stitched together. But the moments where it's kind of like, oh no, we're all sort of digging into this one sort of thing. It's when it works, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, I was going to say, Jessica, thank you so much for your time. The hour has flown by, as it always tends to do. So, if people are kind of curious to sort of actually, get updates about your work and find out more, where would sort of the best place be for them to?
Probably Twitter. It's at Miss_Jess03.
Mm-hmm.
That has links to all my other stuff, but you can also find me on Twitch, which is Angry Nerd Girl, twitch.tv/AngryNerdGirl, or on my website, which is jessicamarkrumwrites.com.
I was gonna say, as someone who has the handle of Whitby Writes, it's just so easy. It's like my name and then what I do, I write sometimes.
Yeah. I almost did jessicamarkrum.com, and then I was like, one of my therapy clients is going to look me up and find that and be so confused. So I wanted to keep that like separate.
There's a lot of cat adventures here.
What is this?
Yeah. But no, again, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a lovely chat, and yeah, no, I like I said, I look forward to all the sort of the products and stuff coming out on the horizon. I do always have one final question though, and it pains me to ask, but how do you end a podcast?
Drink water,
Oh.
Wear a mask, and love yourself.
That's perfect advice. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything better than that. No, again, well, thank you so much for listening. Again, please heed every piece of Jessica's advice just then. I think that's probably the best way. I think this is the first time that it's actually been informative ending. so no, I can't get any better than that. So yeah, no, thank you so much. Be sure to tune in next week.
Thank you so much for having me. I totally interrupted you because I'm an asshole.
No, it's fine. You know what? It's fine. No, it's perfect. And then there will be the subtle fade in, and goodbye.